All right, good morning again. Welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV television and radio. Don't forget to add your voice to the conversation by joining us on Africa Young Voices Media Empire Facebook page.
Pick up your comments and we'll definitely find time to read them in the program. This morning, we are going to discuss the 2020 financial year report by Audit. The report estimated that there are cash losses of about 153.9 billion yuans from 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 financial year. So this morning, to discuss this issue and more, we have William Saulamin, National Coordinator, Civil Society Consortium on Service Delivery, and Marcos Bankura, Executive Director, Citizens Forum for Democratic Accountability. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
You're very much welcome. I'll start with you. Compliments of the season, by the way. I'll start with you, William. The report, I suppose you've gone through it. You might have possibly read the executive summary. What's your position as civil society that have been advocating about accountability and service delivery? What's your position on it?
Well, it's very, very challenging. And I think Sierra Leoneans, they are suffering, may not be happy with this report. And the report is not just looking at the previous government, but even the current government, because it covers 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So it's like bringing the two governments into this report. And year in, year out, we've been discussing about the Auditor General's report that it actually needs to be action. You know, necessary actions needs to be taken. And if we are talking about actions, we are looking in the first place, we are looking at the Sierra Leone Parliament. You know, they have so much power and all of that. That is why before the Auditor General's actual report actually gets out to the public, they have to table it first in Parliament, for Parliament to actually look at it, make some comments, and then they can now, get the report out to general public. So we are expecting Parliament to actually play a pivotal role for the past years, but we have not been seeing much in the area of Parliament taking necessary actions. And that one has caused so much frustration to the common man, because we are expecting them to represent us and to represent us well, not to just be there in Parliament. In fact, there was a time when people actually call me, journalists call me for us to discuss the Auditor General's report. I sometimes refuse, because it's like talking, and at the end of the day, there is no action. You know, you look at the figure, 150-something billion is a very huge amount. That money can be used to construct more health facilities, to construct more, school roads and all the rest of it. And then at the end of the day, these figures are coming out. Not necessarily that this figure that is actually out, people actually chop all of the money. It's just about people are not actually following procedures. Yeah. You know, you buy goods, and at the end of the day, you did not went through the normal procedures, the normal processes, invoice, and all of that. You come with your receipt and that all. You know, so these are some of the challenges when the Auditor General's office gets.
And like you say, it keeps happening from 2017, 18, 19, and 2020, and it's the same issues of accountability, documents not available, people can't account for expenditures and all of that. What do you think could be the main reason for this? Because every year with the reports, the Auditor General makes recommendations that are to be implemented to address these issues. But we see the same happening every year.
I think if the Parliament is not doing well, we are expecting this government, who has actually been talking about accountability and transparency, talking about lawlessness and indiscipline and all of that, to actually, step up their game. We want to see them, coming up, because the previous government, a very senior government official, a minister by then, actually made a statement at Miata conference, of which I was very, very frustrating, that the Auditor General's report is a mere opinion. A very senior government official. I felt so bad for that statement coming from a senior government officer, that is just a mere opinion. So if it's a mere opinion, why are we wasting the government of Sierra Leone money into that particular department? Why that department is even existing? if a document like that is just a mere opinion. So meaning is not value, it's not important. So why are we spending money? Why are we doing, auditing year in, year out? Why? That's the question people want to ask. So we are saying as a Sierra Leonean and civil society that we want to see the central government, His Excellency the President, who believes in accountability, to ensure that they work together with the Parliament to ensure that issues that has to do with the Auditor General's office is actually taking more, serious position in his government. Because we are always looking at his manifesto, where they preach about accountability and transparency and all that. We want to see some actions actually from this government to ensure that people have confidence in that particular department to actually even exist.
And when you say that, I'll take this over to you, Marcos. The president, during the inauguration, said he's waging war against three strong issues. One is corruption, and this also forms part of corruption. For a government where the president takes his commitment fighting against corruption so seriously, what does it mean when the Auditor General's report shows we have over 150-something billion loans unaccounted for?
Yeah, thank you very much. It is very, very important that you ask a question of that nature, because if we talk about corruption, we talk about the audit report. What is germane is what the president has mentioned earlier. That is, even at the time of his campaign, he was frowning at the issue of corruption. Because if I can reflect audit report, I think in 2015 or 2016, the president, the current president, whilst he was in opposition, wrote a letter to the former president, raising concerns with the state of corruption amidst the Ebola period, right? So as a result of that, we know that the president, when he came, he made a lot of executive orders, and he asserted that his government will focus on or against the fight against corruption, right? So that speaks about accountability, that speaks about good governance. And we have seen the president represented us overseas. There was a time he was invited by the World Bank in South Africa, and he mentioned issues of that nature. And we all know during his speech in Parliament, he spoke about the issue of corruption, fiscal discipline, among others. And if we have reached this particular point, wherein what he had said has become an antithesis, complete opposite, right, of what he mentioned. Because if we talk about 153.9 billion, almost 154 billion loans, it's a colossal amount, right? Irrespective of the fact that recoveries or coveries were made in 2017, 2018, these were all amounts to the 153 billion of monies they have collected, because there were backlogs that were not collected. And up till now, the audit service is facing it very difficult because of the recalcitrance of public institutions to actually give account of what has been given to them and what has been expended. Because it is a responsibility section 119, subsection 2, give authority to the audit service Sierra Leone to ensure that every year they endeavor to make sure that they check various departments to know what they have collected and what they have expended. So as a result of that, those monies have been put together. But it is very frustrating, it is very disappointing that this government has actually not keep up to what is expected. Because if the president used corruption as a platform or as a yardstick or a barometer to actually fight corruption or to maintain a kind of fiscal discipline, and at the end of the day, even his own department, which is executive, State House in particular, has been caught in a web of massive corruption.
Would come to the to that aspect, especially with the hotel bills, and would come to that. But for other MDAs, in some cases, for some of these institutions, they've not been able to properly follow through the book. Mm-hmm. Do you see this as perhaps lack of the required knowledge to do things the right way, or could it just be deliberate corrupt practices going on?
It is not lack of knowledge, neither lack of experience. because we are all aware of the fact that audit service, year in, year out, have been coming with audit reports. They have been making recommendations. And the same problems they have encountered before, they are still facing it. So as a result of that, it is deliberate corruption, right? Because if you are aware of the fact that this is what you are supposed to do, there are due processes, you understand, that every year auditors will come and they will ask us for statements, financial statements, right, as to what we have received and as to what we have spent. It is the responsibility of every department or every ministry to ensure that they provide this document. We are just talking about the 153 billion, right, losses, that is losses, right? We also have huge amounts of monies. For example, we have about over 300 billion money that has not been accounted for, that is based on irregularities, inconsistencies. You understand? So these are monies, this is losses, 153 is losses, meaning that these are monies we cannot recover anymore. We have lost them. You understand? And there are other areas of irregularities.
And with all of this happening, it takes the Auditor General's report to bring all of this when there's an anti-corruption commission.
Yes.
What role does that institution have to play in all of this? Whether before the report, now that the report is out, and even after the report?
Just like the audit service, the Anti-Corruption Commission is established by an Act of Parliament through the central government, and they have their mandate. And that mandate is to ensure that they fight against corruption or prevent corruption. So what I've always said, and one of the reasons that motivated me to establish my organization, right, Citizens Forum for Democratic Accountability, is because I've come to the realization that one of the major problems for corruption is that lack of accountability. You understand? Now, ACC being the institution that is in charge, they have the onus to ensure that some of these things are even revealed before audit comes up with their own reports, because that is their own responsibility. But what we have seen over the years, right, I'm a partner with the ACC, but what is fact speak truth to power, right, is the fact that I have not seen much of them actually bringing up things, say, for example, things that are hidden, you understand, that has been brought up, except things that have been raised by other people. But it's their own responsibility. That is why I've always mentioned that, as far as I'm concerned, the ACC have been doing extremely well, right, when they play external games, right? They score spectacular goals. But when it comes internally, they have done very little or nothing as far as I'm concerned. Say, for example, we have audit reports before, right? Let me just mention, for the past 3 years, we've got audit reports. To what extent have the ACC actually gone to bring people to book in respect of the audit service reports that have been coming? And the audit service, whilst they investigate, they are in conformity with international standards. They are in conformity with international organizations, the advices they give. And they do training and other things. So as a result of that, the audit service has worked, very, very assiduously to expose some of these things. And until we are able to put these things together and we follow them. Look at Parliament. There are 3 organs of government. Each organ has a responsibility to perform. Apart from lawmaking, Parliament has other functions to perform. Say, for example, oversight, you understand, and accountability. Right?
So you agree about, with William Shaw,
yes,
about Parliament?
Yes, about accountability. When you talk about the audit service itself, one of their primary function, right, is accountability and good governance, right? And Parliament is the bedrock, is the citadel of democracy. So as a result of that, we expect Parliament to do follow-up. Even this particular report, it was just placed, you understand? It was just tabled.
And I want to come to William Shaw about Parliament quickly. I know you've been taking notes, you have a lot of things you want to say, but the issue of Parliament and the importance of the audit report. We all know Honorable Tawa, Honorable Yumkela, and others have been calling for previous audit reports to be debated. They've been there, they go, they table them, and they stay there. They are not debated. The public don't understand what's in it or what action they're taking. How do we get to that point where, like I said earlier, there are recommendations. Parliament itself can come in and ensure that these recommendations are implemented. And if MDs do not implement the recommendations, they do not approve their allocations.
I've said this time without number that for a country to grow or or to get smaller, it's in the hands of our parliament. The parliament is very, very great. I can even sit here, the parliament will order me, a police officer, on a SO2 or whatever, to take me to parliament immediately for questioning. Even the president, with some amount of percentage, they can vote that they don't want the president. You understand? The parliament has so much power, but I will tell you for free, they are not doing much. Now, we are just looking at the 153 billion. What the Auditor General actually saw, you understand, from the period we are talking about. It was what actually they saw. But there are so many other areas, so many other institutions that they are not auditing. You understand? You can even look recently for the FCC, the Freetown City. Every money that is given to individuals, even all civil society, whatever money is given to us by donor partner, it is public funds. And we are public authorities as executive director. It is public funds, and those monies must be accounted for. And the Auditor General has the responsibility not only to run after government officials, but even us running NGOs and civil society, they have the responsibility to audit us. But the institution that actually owns the power is the parliament. But parliament is not doing much, and I believe they are taking chance because our people are not up there, they are not educated and all of that. Because these are the issues, when they get to their constituencies, these are the serious questions they need to pose to them. What are you doing representing us in the parliament?
We've got a point in previous administration where the anti-corruption boss, then Joseph Fitzgerald Kamara, had to fight with the leader of government business, then Honorable Bundu, about who's got the right to look at audit reports. It's happening the same. I can recall the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, now Honorable Sengepo, who is Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, telling anti-corruption that they have a responsibility to scrutinize people on the audit reports. But as civil society organizations, how do we get parliaments to understand that these powers, they have them, they can be very helpful in ensuring that the recommendations are implemented?
There is also need for partnership. You have the Anti-Corruption Commission. I know the gentleman is doing his bit, though not that much, because we have been expecting that before this time, even the 2016-2017 report, we have been expecting, much more from the Anti-Corruption Commission. And nothing is wrong if they can work together in partnership. It makes the job very, very easy. It has even the cost effective in terms of doing the job if they are doing it in partnership. But you don't see much partnership in all of this. And I think it's very, very key. So for us seeing this kind of figure year in, year out...
But we also have responsibility as citizens.
We also have responsibility. I'm coming there also, my brother.
To all parliaments
I'm coming there also.
Yes, to all parliaments accountable and responsible as well, because we voted for them. So I'm asking again, as civil society organizations, how do you come together to rally behind parliament or those responsible to ensure that those who are found wanting are held accountable and the recommendations are implemented? Because I have been reading the recommendations. The recommendations are just the same. If one ministry can implement just these recommendations, it will explain that there will be no problem when they come to audit again. But it's the same thing, same old same. How do you yourself partner as well
that is what we are doing now, communicating, educating people, sensitizing people. We have a role as civil society to actually engage them, to even organize demonstrations. You understand? We have this responsibility also. But I said earlier, we all have a role to play. The moment you capture Sao Lamin today, you see people coming from Bo, demonstrating that the ACC is not even, they don't have the right to invite me to the ACC. You see people demonstrating in the street of Freetown. When I was chopping the money, it was only me, Sao Lamin, and my family. But when there is now a matter, an institution that is responsible to investigate issues that has to do with corruption, you will see people coming out in the street, hundreds and thousands of them, getting to the ACC office, asking them, why are you arresting this person? So we also have a responsibility. As citizens, not only civil society, we all have a responsibility. If you have been placed in that office, like my sister rightly said, whether people are qualified to be in the offices or whatever, if that is the challenge or whatever. I believe all of our financial officers or financial directors in these offices, they are more than qualified to do their job. You understand? This thing is very simple. If you have to do procurement, you know the procedures, you know the processes. You understand? If you are supposed to buy something, you know what you are supposed to do. You need to get pro forma invoices, you need to have receipts and all of that. If year in, year out, Parliament is calling these people, even attendance register. I was there some years back at Parliament, you know, observing the discussions. Some offices, for even them to monitor the admin or the personnel person, to monitor the attendance register, you know, they have to call them to attention. Mr. Pierce, we saw that your ministry, people are not signing register and all of it. Make sure next year people start signing. The PS will say, yes, I will do so. But year in, year out, you will see the same thing repeating. And these people are having salaries, they're using government vehicles, they're using fuel and all of that. But every year you see the same thing happening. So you become frustrated and if you say, can we leave this one? But we cannot leave it as Sierra Leoneans. I think we have to speak out. We have to organize, I mean, some activities that can show them that we are not happy by organizing demonstration. But again, if you want to organize demonstration, you have to have clearance from the police.
And now let's use even this current Auditor General's report. Parliament, for some reason, seems to be avoiding debating the Auditor General's report. And it's not just the 2020 Auditor General's report. Yeah. It was a shocker for many to see Parliament trade the discussion on Auditor General's report to discuss IGR report, comparing the two on, you know, it was a shocker to many people. At this stage, how do we still stop just talking on the media, asking them to do something they're supposed to do that they're refusing to do? How do we get them to take this particular one more seriously now and debate it to a point where their constituents get to understand it?
One is to get people out from their position, and how we can do that as Sierra Leoneans. If they are not ready to work for us, mind you, these people are serving us. The parliamentarians, the directors, the managers.
Well, they're meant to be serving us.
Yeah, they are supposed to serve us because they are using our taxpayers' money, you know, for them to be paid at the end of the month so that they can take care of their family. So they are there to work for us. They are not our bosses. They are there to serve us. But if they are not serving us, one of the ways we can demonstrate our anger with them is to take them out of the parliament, their seat. And you can agree with me that the last elections, most of them who were there were kicked out. Yeah. You know, and I believe it is because of some of these reasons. And now we are getting to election very soon. So we want our people to know that we are tired of just having this bread and butter and explanation and all the rest of it. We need to see things moving. Because people are not actually accounting and we are not taking this Auditor General's report seriously, people are just doing the same thing. Things are getting bad. 40 or more years ago when we are born, we are seeing pipe-borne water at chiefdom level, electricity at chiefdom level. At this time, you can't find it.
Now, Marcus, I'm going to ask you, what should be the alternative for us as a country who really wants to take accountability and transparency very seriously when our parliament now is refusing to debate the Auditor General's report? What should be an alternative for us as citizens, as a country, especially in delving deeper into the Auditor General's report?
Yeah, I think that is very, very important. It is the one major factor in the first place why we are faced with such a contentious situation. It is as a result of the polarization, right? The speed at which we have become polarized is a major factor that is relegating us from actually focusing on the issue. Because
every issue is politicized.
It's politicized. Everything. Right? Because when we talk about good governance, we talk about accountability. And accountability is paramount. And we have come to a situation where the issue of accountability is not taken seriously. Whether it is the anti-corruption, whether it is whatever other institution, Parliament, say for example, that will take us back at the initial stage when this government came to power. We know the political gymnastics that actually occur in Parliament for the position of the Speaker of Parliament. So that is why it is but very prudent that as Sierra Leoneans, right, we have a duty, and that duty is to ensure that we elect people to Parliament that have that have it all, you understand? Say Tawa, that is why Tawa has left footprints in the sand of history, in whatever way one look at it, irrespective of the fact that he is a member of the government that is in power. But he stood firm against certain anomalies. The same applies until Sierra Leoneans begin to think and vote people, not based on sentiment. Say, for example, let's say you contest an election, we vote for you for the presidency, then I also look at the situation and say that, okay, this other political party, let's ensure that we have more members in parliament. The more the opposition will have more members in parliament, right, the more issues of accountability will be taken serious. Now, at this particular moment, the majority in parliament, or let's say the speaker, there are issues that should be brought up by the speaker based on the political will of the president. If the president lacks the political will to actually take certain things to parliament, because the speaker himself, irrespective of the fact that he's coming from the government that is in power, which is led by the president, who is almost a semi-chairman of the party, it will be very, very difficult because issues like, say, for example, we've got 2019, we've got 2018, and these reports have been there for some time, for quite too long now, and they have not been debated.
Marcus, it seems we're always waiting on elections to, make the needed change. But it seems, again, when you look at the voting population, the people who have the common sense to vote based on what they think is right for the country and not based on the region they hail from are in the minority. The rest of the people, the majority, are those who think that because I am XYZ or from XYZ, I owe my allegiance, my vote to this political party. Whether or not they perform, it's not important, it's not relevant. And talking about getting these constituents to understand these things, it's a long process. We vote once in 5 years. Yes. It's a long process. A lot of education. But in the 5 years period, what do we do to really ensure that there's development? We would not want to kick you out of office for things to go on. Be accountable for what you're doing in the office already. Whether you get re-elected or not, that's just a bonus. But taking responsibility for your actions and inactions.
Yes, and that is the essence of...
Sorry, hold your thoughts on that. Yes. You'll come to answer that. It's 8:45. We will take a break. All right, welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us through that break. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV Television and Radio. Join us on Africa Young Voices Media Empire Facebook page. Drop a comment about the issues we're discussing, and we would definitely factor that into the conversation. We see a lot of your comments already. Yeah, we would be reading out in just a moment. Marcus, before we went on the break, I was asking you, the long road to say just every election, we pay people back by determining whether we should vote them, give them a re-election or not, is a long road. It takes every 5 years. In the meantime, what should be, repercussions for actions and inactions? It's not seen. It's not, there's nothing on it.
It's a very important question. Just like I started, that these are the factors that have actually contributed for the country to retrogress rather than it to progress, because most times we have to wait until election. But there is one thing I read in political science, and that thing is sovereignty. Sovereignty belongs to the people. Even the Constitution, right, gave sovereignty to the people. And as a result of that, in the exercise of that sovereignty, there is one day you have to exercise that particular power. That is on election day. It is a day for you to think wisely and decide to vote for anybody you consider fit and wise to vote for. Now, there is a need for us to have a national plan. Understand? National development plan, right? When I say national development plan, it is not a plan that should be based on just few people, you understand, that will come together and decide to do the plan. It's a national issue. We have a national development plan, say for example, 5, 10 years or 15 years. And that plan should be followed. It should become a law, you understand? But I understand your point. In this part...
Very brilliant suggestion there, Marcus. But I'll take you back to where I was on asking about repercussion for actions and inactions.
I was coming here.
Now, with the current report released by Audit Service Sierra Leone, we talk about forgery of receipts, invoices, and all of that. And then we have a parliament where they're not even talking about debating it. So how do we get these individuals, not just to wait to say, next election we would choose not to re-elect you guys, but how do we get them to face the consequences of their actions? Parliament failing the people, not debating the Auditor General's report. Now with Auditor General's report talking about perjury of receipts and all of it. Consequence for actions as opposed to just waiting for re-election or not during ballot period.
The framers of the Sierra Leone Constitution thought it fit and wise that if we are civilized enough, right, we should go according to the provisions, right? Because gone are the days wherein you have to be very, very militant. But sometimes when the people are forced, like the substance of a toothpaste, it can happen. But the problem is, let's say, for example, I want to actually go into a demonstration. Say, for example, if the office of the presidency, right, falsified receipts, that is misconduct. And misconduct can amount to impeachment. Let's say it is the office of the president, and let's say that the president himself is involved in it. You understand? In other countries, say for example, in the US, or say in the UK, you understand? If it is in the UK, they will pass a vote of no confidence in the president. You understand? Because the president cannot involve in that. Listen, you can't say that.
No, but they have staff.
Listen, let us allow ourselves. You are giving a very long period. These are the anathemas. These are the problems. Why we are caught in the web, why we are not progressing. Because of sentimental attachments, you understand? You cannot say, even identical twins don't think alike. I cannot stand, I have not said the president has done that. What I have said is the fact that if at all it is fact, and let us take into consideration the fact that it is a qualified audit that has been done. And this is one of the first, it is in conformity to international standards and all that. So if ever, look at the people themselves, they were paid twice. Double dipping, you understand? They were first paid for, and they were also paid, and they accepted the money. And let's take a situation where, say, for example, the president is also involved in that double dipping. You understand? Because what happens, it is not the president that undertakes it. Most times you have people, you have protocols, you understand, officers that can do that. You understand? But let's say there is double dipping. Money has already been paid, and another money is collected. Can you stand for that individual?
The report actually, the audit report, like you said, actually pointed to the chief of protocol, severely, who they said should account and should explain some of these issues.
But now, yes, but before that, let me just say, let's look at the situation, for example, of Samuel Kamara. Understand? This present situation that is going on. They say there is an economic loss. And that economic loss, it is because of the fact that he was the minister in charge when a contract was given to an individual. But he's been brought for economic loss. Understand? In that situation, the president might not go to a hotel and say that I am going to pay this. You understand? But the fact remains that he works with the protocol. And the protocol, chief of protocol, you understand, works with the president. I am saying that in certain countries, irrespective of the fact that it is not the president that actually gone, you understand, and say, I'm going to pay, I falsify this. But it is under his auspices. And by virtue of the fact that it is under his auspices, he will be questioned for that.
And should take responsibility. That's what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
He should take responsibility.
He should take responsibility. There is no way anybody with his right senses will say that the president will not take responsibility.
Okay, let me come to William. We are coming to take messages quickly. But I want to ask specifically about accountability issues. President Bill, when he was in opposition, spoke highly about issues of accountability. If you read the New Direction Manifesto, a lot of the recommendations on how they will do things about it and the problems that we're having comes from the audit report, the several audit reports. And it seems like we're seeing same. How do we get, that leadership by example? This is what I said, and I meant it, and I'm going to implement it.
Yes, I think so many people have been sacked, even in the office of the president, because of doing the wrong thing. You understand? But in this situation, we cannot say the president has to be responsible for that, because there are people who are responsible. The presidency, we have to understand, it's a very big office. You cannot expect the president to even go and do payments, to even withdraw money from the bank and then put that money in the bag.
But one of the things they mentioned in the report is that the government has to move with a lot of money from here to Lebanon to go pay for these things, when we can do bank transfers and transactions that will ensure proper accountability.
What I'm saying in this direction is that if there are some malpractices or whatever in the process. What we're expecting the president, if these reports have come out, for him to set up an independent investigation and then ask somebody else to take immediate action.
Does the president has the political will for this to take into Parliament?
That's what we are saying.
You understand? He doesn't.
Against whosoever was in charge in carrying out his or her duty. But we cannot call on His Excellency the President and say, no, he has to be at the greatest responsibility.
I don't think that the president is responsible.
And it's not just this president, all other presidents.
So that is why all other presidents,
so what you're saying is that
we reflect the past to destroy the future.
Marcos, so what you're saying is that it should take action.
That is what I'm saying.
Immediate action.
Yes, but he cannot be blamed.
Okay, let's take messages, Phoebe.
A lot of messages here on our Facebook page. Right. Right. So I'll start with Dafe Ibrahim, who says neocolonialism is seriously at play. Africa as a continent isn't respected, devoid of our importance on different levels, including human and financial resources. You can't hear this drama when the European competition comes up, but when ours is around, there you would see all types of unqualified football pundits giving their selfish and racist analysis. We're living in a pitiful way as Africans. So Lamgana and Swil, read in between the lines now, my dearest presenters. Nayasuna Africa. This is about, what we spoke about this morning.
Yeah, the Nations Cup and the players who clubs are refusing to release. AJ Lawunde says, nothing is strange here. Same old stories I've been hearing from activists and oppositions, whether they're in present government or past, they have same ideologies of governance, nothing separates them.
Hossam Conte says the members of parliament have failed us in Sierra Leone.
Ronald Beresford Johnson says, I said it before, those with the greatest responsibility in the last government have got away scot-free. So will this current government. They are the sacred cows who are above the law. Since 2016 to the present, the AG's reports highlight misappropriation of funds and that these monies must be accounted for. This money belongs to the taxpayers, not political parties.
Ambassador Mike Joseph Kanu says the loopholes, too many in that report, and are really distorted over this report over how money has been spent recklessly.
Salif Ujalo says, Sierra Leoneans in general, we don't like transparency and accountability. Whenever you ask for that, the question is, believe me.
Francis King Allen Amadou says, SL Parliament is a disgrace to we the people of this country.
Osam Conte says, in Sierra Leone, absolutely we don't have honorable members of parliament. We have mediocres representing us, and that has resulted to the backwardness across the country. For example, 2 members of parliament are in South Africa, the EFF headed by Julius Malema.
Paul Kanu says this year's report is unique, being that it captured the presidency presenting fake hotel and medical bills, state looting at its apex.
Edward M. Siaka says no separation of powers in the country. The executive has control over the judiciary and the legislative organs of government. That's why the parliament won't debate this report.
Hossam Conte says civil society organizations have failed the people of Sierra Leone.
Albert Fuji says, this is absurd to hear. How can we focus on chasing past corruption cases and ignore the present? As the fight against corruption now having a scale of preference, this clearly shows there is no effective system and procedures properly in place. Shame.
Nancy Johnson says, Mr. Mann, let's talk about the past government and concentrate on this present issue.
Sadu Jallo says, the level of corruption in Sierra Leone is unbelievable. We might as well put it up for sale on Amazon or eBay because since independence, we are locked on the reverse gear. God help us.
Swissman says, well done. Today we have the right man in the studio. Please, sir, can you give us a little take about the Auditor General's report? Don't you think the SLPP government will likely fail the people in the future if such amount of money is been missing in the country at a time when the country is struggling with COVID-19 and gets to the end, the government cannot account for the said amount that is missing?
And the final one I'll take, I think, is from Mohamed Sambora. He says, we the people of the country are not ready for change and development. Common procedure cannot be followed by these ministries, departments, and agencies. Mr. Government, please sack these heads in their offices.
Albert Fuji says, corruption is a fight we must fight, and a fight we must win. My question is, are we winning the fight? If yes, how? Mind your words.
I'll take one final one before we take the news summaries from our regular, follower here on our Facebook page, Hassan Mansour Kagbo. He says, in almost 4 years of corruption fighting in Salon, things are just going from bad to worse. In this very government who came to fight and clean out corruption, Salon, why? And he's crying.
Ibrahim Jr. says, I'm very much disappointed at this present government for not following their manifesto. It's a shame. And the final message I'll read is from Swissman, who says, believe me, I don't trust the Anti-Corruption Commission because the head is appointed by the president, and he will always stand to defend the president and the government, but always prepare to prosecute the opposition. But one day God will... well, that would be all I'll read from that message. Well, that's all on the messages.
For this Wake Up schedule, we continue the program. We still have William Saul Amin and Marcus Bangua in the studios as we try to round up the issue of accountability. I know this discussion will continue. Government hasn't come out with an official statement yet, and the discussion will continue. But what should we look forward to ensure that this doesn't be another document as we saw in 2019? Parliament went through it, they invited people. Parliament hasn't debated it. And it was just recently that the chairman of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, presented their report on it, and we're in 2020. How do we ensure that actions are taken and the recommendations are followed through?
Yes, it's a very important question. The fact remains that Parliament has a role in all of these things that we are discussing. That is why the Constitution empowered certain institutions to perform certain functions. You mentioned earlier that there was a time when there was a kind of a conflict as to who will take responsibility in respect of the audit reports, right? So meaning that the Constitution itself has already delegated authorities to various bodies to do so. And now that we should take into consideration the fact that the President is a member of Parliament, right? The President is a member of Parliament. And when issues of this nature, right, are brought up, there is the need for them to be debated. And to debate these issues, right, the onus itself, the political will itself, is on the President, because the President is a member of Parliament and the Speaker of Parliament is accountable to him. And by virtue of the fact that he is accountable to him, that is why he has to redouble his efforts and stand tall, to ensure that, in as much as he has been talking about accountability, the fight against corruption, except where one is blind or is reluctant to accept the fact. But it is clear that the President, from the start of it all, laid emphasis on the fight against corruption. And that has to do with accountability, right? And the only thing about accountability goes with service delivery, effective service delivery, right? Because if there is that lack of accountability, a lot of monies will be misappropriated, as we have seen, right? And when these monies are misappropriated, the proclivity, right, for effective service delivery will be very difficult. Look at what we just saw, you understand, on the road, you understand? That is an aspect of effective service delivery. There is a particular institution in charge of that. Yes, as citizens, we have a role, we have a responsibility to ensure that we prevent that particular area. Just like lawyers will say that occupiers' liability in your house or here at AYV. If anything happens to anybody, say where there is something that has been done, you understand, without notice, you take responsibility because it's occupiers' liability. So in that situation, I just want the President, right, in as much as he's somebody that has stood firm, you understand, in asserting, right, that he is there to fight against corruption. This thing is in Parliament. But we've got from 2018, if you put all the monies, the losses, I'm not talking about monies, for example, debts that have been taken. Now, if you follow the audit report itself, you find out that there are certain loans that have been taken that have not been submitted to the audit reports. For example, you have Saratel, for example, right? they took loan, huge amount of money, and this has not been submitted. You understand? Even in terms of submitting certain resources, enemy, you understand? Also, I think about 15 billion, right, has not been submitted. Okay. So these are all problems. It's about accountability.
How do we get to implement those recommendations in this report and get to all those responsible accountable, for their actions? How do we get to do that? What would you recommend?
My recommendation is, in the first place, let us take into consideration the fact that there is the court, right? For virtue of the fact that there is a court, we expect ACC to perform, but where ACC, does not perform, understand? There is even the court, you need to take an action to the court. That is where the problem is deep-rooted. It's really difficult, understand, in terms of recommendation. Because I cannot say the people should go on demonstration.
What will you want parliaments to do?
I want parliament, right? There is the process called recall in the first place, recall, where members of parliament fail to perform their duties. The citizens have that responsibility to do a recall. You understand? A recall means that a particular member of parliament of a particular constituency that actually fails to perform his function should be recalled. Members of parliament, we have public opinion, the aggregate of views held by the public on a particular issue. And this particular issue, all of us are mindful of the fact that huge lot of money have been misappropriated. Now, Parliament has a responsibility. Let them forget about political sentiment. Let them think about themselves as individuals and the fact that they have been given a responsibility. And that's in as much as we cannot meet. That is why it is a representative democracy. They should table this particular audit report. Let's go first to the 2018-2019. They table this audit report. After they have tabled it, they discuss it. After the discussion, they make their own recommendations and punish people. Okay. They have the responsibility. And as I said, Parliament is the bedrock of good governance. Okay. And where Parliament is lacking and not performing the functions that it's supposed to perform, there will come a time people will come and demonstrate against members of Parliament. But some people, because of political sentiments and other things, will not do that. Okay, they will come publicly and say that this is what we are supposed to do. But they will be at the back telling the police that this person, Marcos, is the person who led this particular thing. That cannot help us. We cannot push. And just all governments, even the former government, they are all the same thing.
Just so as we close, you were talking about the president's commitment in all of this. How can the president come on board in this to demonstrate further his commitment to wage war against corruption, but also without infringing on the independence of institutions like even Parliament?
Yeah, I had my brother emphasize it on 2018, 19, and 20. This report is actually focusing on 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Not 18 to 2020. Let's get back to 16 and 17.
If you go back into the report,
so I'm coming.
If you go back into the report, you mentioned me. If you go back into the report,
I'm coming.
There are coverage done.
I'm talking
but it was holistically the financial year of 2020. It is well estimated there.
My brother Marcos,
let's say that. Let's say my emphasis is 2020. If you want to take, you cannot correct the present by reflecting the past. When you reflect the past, you say you can correct the present.
If we are discussing the report, let us go back to 2016, 17. Am I right? Is the report covering 16, 17? Right down.
You misunderstood what is stated there. When they say it covers, you understand? But at the end of the day, they say the financial year of 2020.
Okay, why should we just bother ourselves? Let him make his point. Go ahead.
Are there not been issues? Have people not been brought to court for that?
If bottom paper only don't find, the pantapon no go lead them.
You see?
Let us first of all talk about 2016 and 17. And that is why some of us are actually hard with the government. Because we have been expecting them from the audit report, from the white paper and all of that. Sierra Leoneans have been expecting the president to come very, very hard to ensure that those who are supposed to account for the people's money do actually account. But up to this time,
but to some extent, that has been done with the Commission of Inquiry. Because the audit report then, they did the COI recommendations, the GTT reports.
That is what I'm saying. The report has been out, but we need the report to be actually action.
But people were taken to the COI, no?
That is what I'm saying. People are supposed to pay back money to this government.
But that is the recovery that goes to 153 billion. They don't understand that area.
Okay, let him make his
point. People are supposed to pay back money. They have not paid. And even the Sierra Leoneans we are fighting for, we are advocating for, They are also there in the streets. When Saul Amin is called at the ACC, you will see people jump into the streets. Why are you inviting this man? When the man was chopping the money, he alone and his family, where are you? We are sitting right there at the corner, still suffering. And now when that individual is invited, people jump on the street. So we are asking, how are we going to address this problem? How can we address the problem when we have everything in our head has to do with politics and everything? Because somebody is invited like any other man is invited.
But what is the issue about inviting?
Phoebe asked a question.
Why if you are invited?
What is the issue here?
People have to jump to the street.
What is the circumvention?
Why if you are invited? Police have to barricade
what
the
you are
entire place
saying
just
has
to
not
avoid
been
violence and all of
Gentlemen,
that.
I would like to continue to refer to both of you.
Marcos has to give me a chance, please.
Gentlemen,
Oh, yes, circumventing.
He has been given a lot of time.
Can we not make
No,
our...
just ask him to hold on. I have the space. I have the
Well, listen now to
Both
it,
of you, hold on. Can we please continue to call you both gentlemen?
No, what I'm saying.
Right.
He has been
Marcus,
given a
hold
chance.
Hold on.
Yeah, carry on, madam.
We would like to continue referring to both of you as gentlemen.
Yeah.
So for the benefit of the viewers and our listeners, let's have some amount of decorum. Marcus, hold on a moment. He has to make his submission.
Thank you very much, madam.
Saul,
Yeah.
you were saying?
I was saying that, yes, the president has a very big role to play. More especially when you look at his manifesto. I have the manifesto. Almost every day is like a Bible to me. I have to look at that manifesto. And the key focus in that manifesto, why people voted this government, because he said they are going to wage war on corruption. The issue about accountability and transparency and all of that. That was why some of us were actually happy when this government came into power. They set up the Commission of Inquiry and all of that, and we saw the ACC moving here and there. We were also expecting the Parliament, who has a greater responsibility, more than even the Commission of Inquiry report. This thing is very simple. The Auditor General is coming out to report year in and year out.
Again, how can the president come in to reiterate his commitment and stance to wage war against corruption without also infringing on the independence of institutions like Parliament?
By sacking people, sentencing people, asking people to pay. You seize their properties.
Is that the work of the president?
No, he's the head of state. He's the head of state. He's the fountain of honor. He has the responsibility. People voted for him because of the pronouncements he made that I will do X, Y, Z. And people said, if you believe in corruption, you believe in transparency, we are going to vote for you. And people have done their own part. So we are expecting the government, His Excellency the President, to not play his own part. We don't want to see a situation when somebody is called for questioning. You see people jumping on the street and all of that, and at the end of the day, you see the president getting back.
Gentlemen.
We don't want to see that. Lastly, please. Lastly, please.
Yes, quickly.
We're running out of time. I want to commend the acting Director General for Road Safety Authority. He's now cleaning up the streets. This is Xmas season.
Don't worry.
I'm coming, please. I'm coming. I just want to make a comment because we have already written a letter to His Excellency the President to come out with a statement pronouncing for a one-day cleaning before we get to the new year. Now that SLIS is clearing the streets, garages and all that, we need to also clear the vicinity.
I want to subscribe to Saulami.
He's subscribing to you.
I want to subscribe to him.
He's agreeing with you.
I want to subscribe to him that it is very wrong most times when people are called at the ACC for people from a particular region or that are connected. To come and make demonstration. You understand? Wrong. It is also based on the public court judgment or opinion, right? That there are certain things sometimes that can warrant a situation.
Okay.
Say, for example,
we don't have time.
See the problem now. That is what he's trying to say.
We don't have time.
You are taking look at the situation.
You are taking us.
This is in 2014 for Sabah Kabara.
Gentlemen,
and there was a commission of inquiry around that.
Thank you very much.
He was appointed by government.
Can you please allow us?
And he has resigned. And he's also waiting for another appointment. So he cannot say anything that is good. It's all right.
Thank you very much. No, William Saulami, gentlemen, can you allow us, please? We need to end this segment of the show. Thank you very much for joining us. Like I said, this is a discussion that will continue. Definitely find time to have you guys again to continue the discussion. But thanks for your time and thanks for being with us. We all see the passion and commitment what I keep saying always is that every other Sierra Leonean wants a better Sierra Leone.
He's
So
my
we see
brother.
that in you
I
guys,
just
and thank you,
imagine in
James.
which this conversation is that serious and intense in Parliament,
Exactly.
where we have the MPs vigorously, energetically.
No, we are going to
discussing
remove. We are going to remove.
Not appointing the right people in Parliament.
We're going to take a quick break, and we would come back after the break with the final segment of the program. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, subscribe. You always dey watch we program them, but you not subscribe it to my channel. All wetin you get for do, press this red subscribe button, and then you come over here and press this bell. So the bell option, press this one with all. And done. And not get for cost you anything. When you do this, na sign for show say you dey support we for make we do more. Thank you for we your help we for share this program. Yeah, God bless you.